What is up, guys? For this video I just wanted to give you guys some updates and a look into what is coming up next for the builds and the channel and all of that good stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about is probably the thing that you're most interested in hearing about, which is the turbo truck and what to kind of look forward to seeing coming up next. Basically, that truck, all it really needs right now is a dyno tune, and then I can kind of move on to the next sort of phase of the build, because once the dyno tune is done, and as long as everything works out good and the tune comes out good, you're gonna have to listen to a little bit of the furnace noise in the background here because I'm sitting in the basement because it's cold outside and I don't want to run the heaters and waste kerosene. Basically, once it has a good tune on it and I know everything works, we're gonna be kind of at a ground zero level with it, where we know everything that's on it is working, and I can improve on some of the designs for, say, exhaust stuff. For example, I plan on redoing the exhaust setup, the fueling setup. Other things can be improved on and kind of ramped up to sort of a phase 2, and we can go for a little bit more power with that V6 once everything's kind of been bumped up to sort of a phase 2 or a stage 2 or whatever you want to call it of the build, basically a second chapter of it, and we'll go back for another tune and see how much the engine can really handle. Now there's some little things that I want to do to it here very soon. First one is I'm having issues with the injectors. I think the eBay injectors are just totally junk. Like, the spray pattern on them is so bad that fuel is kind of collecting on the valves and the inside of the intake manifold, especially under high load situations where there's a lot of fuel being sprayed, and it's causing a lot of weird fueling issues where fuel isn't getting pulled into the cylinder when it's supposed to. And then if I go from a high load situation where I'm high in the map and then drop down to like idle or something where the throttle's closed, it will run really rich, like down into the 10s sometimes, and then slowly work its way back up into the 14s where it's supposed to be at idle. And I think it's from just a really bad spray pattern on the eBay injectors, and possibly them not even being flow matched properly and all that junk. My plan is going to be to put the old injectors on it, which were rebuilt or remanufactured 4-hole spray injectors, which are a Bosch upgrade, basically OEM upgrade type of deal that I bought for it, and they worked really well. I'm going to put them on and then bump my base fuel pressure up to 60 or 65 psi and see if all of my issues with the fueling issues go away and stuff, with stuff sticking to the intake walls and the valves and whatnot. And if that does work, I'm going to see if with the fuel pressure bumped up, I have just enough injector to supply enough fuel for the 4 pounds of boost the thing is currently making, which isn't very much. I'm hoping that they will be enough. They're 190cc injectors that I have for it to put back in it. The 4-hole spray injectors are 190cc, and I'm hoping they'll be around 240, 250cc if I bump the fuel pressure up to like 65 psi base fuel pressure. So I'm hoping that'll be just enough to get the 4 psi tune done. It's going to be around 200-ish, 210-ish wheel horsepower out of it probably. I'm hoping those will be about enough injector for that, and we won't be super high up on the duty cycle on them, and it'll be able to work for a little while until I have the money to buy real injectors. I'm looking at Excel 30-pounders right now because the big injectors are also kind of difficult to tune idle fuel maps and stuff for, so I'm probably going to go with some Excel 30-pounders, maybe 44s. I'm not really sure. I don't plan on putting ethanol in it or anything, and if I buy a set of 8 Excel injectors, if I go V8, I'll have the extra 2 injectors I need already. It's like $300 for a set of them, so it's probably what I'm going to go with, but we'll just have to see. Some other things, I want to make a custom front valence for that truck. You guys will see what that's about later, and it needs hood struts. So I found a set that are for a Toyota truck. They're either for a Highlander or a Hilux or something like that. I don't remember what they were for. But they are hood struts that will raise the hood up for me and hold it open, because I don't have the stock prop rod anymore, because those little plates I made kind of made it impossible to put the thing all the way down. And then I might play around with the lighting on them as well. I want to get some 4x6 projector headlights on it. I do have the whole sealed beam projector headlight kit conversion that I pulled at a junkyard 2 years ago for the old green truck, so I want to do that also, but I don't know exactly for sure if I'm going to be doing that before the dyno tune happens, because that is the most important thing. So that's kind of what to look for on the truck next. There's a lot of suspension stuff that I want to do and some other cosmetic things that I want to have happen, but it's all going to have to wait till after the tune is done, because that's sort of the most important thing, because the tune will get the thing totally dialed and running right, and it'll also, if there is anything that isn't completely dialed, it'll kind of be a good look into what I need to work on next. And then let's talk about the daily a little bit. I've made a couple little tweaks to that thing, a couple little mods. I ripped the entire front bumper off of it and just aren't running it. Made a block off for the lower half of the radiator because the thing takes forever to warm up. Still does, but the way I made the block off is perfect because it allows the clutch fan to still pull air through the radiator, because it doesn't like totally seal it off, but it blocks like wind and stuff from blowing through and making the thing really angry. And then it's got a bull bar on it. Of course, it doesn't have the cap. I mean, that's really about it. That truck needs ball joints and possibly inner and outer tie rods. I'm not really sure if those are bad or not, but I know it needs ball joints pretty much on all four corners. The passenger side is especially bad, and it needs tires really bad and a tune-up. But it's doing pretty well aside from that. Some ball joints and some other little suspension tweaks. Give it a little tune-up, air filter, spark plugs, maybe a fuel filter, and some other just little dumb stuff here and there. And that truck will be pretty dialed and ready to go for who knows how long. I am getting a blown up 3.9 from a friend of mine. He had a water pump tie up on him, and then he tried driving home and ended up blowing his head gasket, so he's just putting a new motor in his truck. And if I help him put the motor in his truck, I get his engine. So I'll be getting a 3.9 with probably warped heads, and I don't know if the black would be warped or not, but it for sure has probably warped heads depending on how hot he got the thing when the head gasket's blue. But I'll be getting that, and I'll be able to kind of play around with that. It's going to have the intake manifold on it still, and a few other things that I want to try and modify and put on the other truck. Like I want to get the intake manifold and potentially shorten the runners and do a keg mod on it, and bore out the throttle body inlets to match the V8 throttle body that I have on my truck also. So, and then I won't have to go to the junkyard and pull one and buy one. I also want to delete my little vacuum port block thing, because I don't think I actually need it anymore, because I don't have that many things pulling vacuum on the turbo truck, but that'll be for later. But yeah, getting that engine, and then I'm just going to keep it around because it's an extra 3.9. If the block is nice and flat and there's no damage to the bottom end, because it was a really low mileage engine that he had in there, it was like 100,000 miles. If the bottom end looks good, I'll keep the short block around in one piece just as a backup in case either of my two trucks needs it, or if it does have some little bit of damage to maybe some rod bearings, things maybe got a little bit hot in the bottom end or whatever, I could maybe do a quick like re-ring deal on it where I get the crank polished to crank up, put new bearings in it and some new piston rings, and open up the ring gap a little bit and just do sort of a garage budget, you know, boost prep build on the 3.9. That'd be kind of fun. But that's those two trucks. I got some other projects I need to be working on. The Grand Am is still broken and leaking because that's what 3.4 liter GM V6s do. So I'm going to be getting new intake manifold gaskets and timing cover gasket, water pump housing gasket, all that stuff, doing it all at once, and hopefully don't have to deal with that car for a little while. Everything else, like this thing still runs, needs air put in the tires, it needs tires on all four corners, but I haven't felt like doing that yet. So I don't know if I'm going to make a video on that. If you guys want to see me work on the Grand Am and complain about GM garbage, you know, early 2000s GM junk for, you know, 10-15 minutes, let me know. I'll make a video on it. And then I got another car I bought that I don't think I've mentioned it all yet, but I bought another car. Some of you follow my Instagram have seen it already. That needs timing chains, and it might need ball joints and a little bit of suspension work, but it's a very good car that I bought for $300. So I'm going to be getting that thing done after the Grand Am is done. And the car also needs registered and insured and plated and stuff, because I haven't done that since I can't drive it, because its timing chain tensioners on it are bad, so the timing chains rattle really bad, and the engine that's in it has variable valve timing that's electronically controlled, so it's got to check engine light. It has a hard time starting because it's freaking out because the cams aren't in the exact position they're supposed to be. So we're getting the Grand Am done, and then working on that other car, getting those two knocked out, dialed, ready to go, finished, out of my hair basically. And then I'll be working on the turbo truck potentially here and there between those two. And then once those two are done, it's going to be time to work on the 300. So we'll be basically tearing the whole front end of that car apart. Engine, transmission are coming out of it, whole front end. Subframe's going to come out. We're going to do some rust repair to the subframe, get that thing totally fixed up, and then fix in some other rust in the front portion of the car that would be really difficult to get to when, you know, the engine is back together, basically so that the front end never has to come apart like that. And I'll be refreshing some gaskets on the old 440 and maybe doing some root gaskets refreshed on the transmission as well, and then some new bushings and just some little improvements to the suspension to get the thing nice and tight up front, and maybe trying to get the power headlight covers and some other things to work up front that have been broken on it for a long time. And then 300 will be done, and we'll be back to kind of the whole normal grind of just working on the turbo truck. So once I have the Grand Am, the other car, and the 300 done, which is good, that's like 3 months worth of work there probably. The 300 is going to take a minute. So it'll probably be about springtime by the time we get into working on the turbo truck full time again, back at to regular schedule. So basically for that thing, it'll probably have the tune on it already, be dyno tuned and all that stuff by the time the 300 is done already. So that stuff will be coming before the 300 is done. That's not, the 300 being worked on isn't going to hinder that at all. But my plan is to once the Grand Am and the other car are done and the truck is already done, I'll put the 300 where I usually work on the turbo truck at and tear it apart there, because that's where all my tools are at. It's a lot better lighting there. I also got some garage improvements coming, so I'll talk about that towards the end here. But I'll move it there, and then that's where it's going to sit until it is done. And then once that is done, I'll be able to start working on the turbo truck there, but we'll have another bay open on the other side to work on the turbo truck and do little things here and there on it. And then once that is done, like I said, we'll be back to the normal deal on the Turbo Dakota, and I want to redo the exhaust on that. I want to put a port matched intake manifold on it, which is port matched to the V8 throttle body, and just some other little things. I want to put the new injectors in it. I want to redo the fuel system and do it like properly, because the way I did it works, and it would probably work for a very long time, but I want to do everything really well and get everything really nice and dialed on the fuel system. I also want my fuel gauge to work, so the tank's got to come back out of it, unfortunately. I don't know what else is really coming for it power wise, because once it's got the fuel system updated, the new injectors, the new exhaust set up, and I might put some ARP head studs in it potentially, and some rocker arms and little things. Once that's done, it's going to be ready to make some pretty decent power, and then it's just going to be all suspension and cosmetic stuff after that, which is kind of what I'm really excited about, because I've been doing all this engine stuff recently. I'm kind of excited to do something a little bit different with it. I want to do some lighting upgrades. I want to put a roll pan on it, maybe some custom, I don't know, I want to do some body work on it potentially. Not get rid of the rust, but maybe put some new rocker panels on it and some fender flares or something, and finish the lowering kit. I want to put all new bushings in the suspension, new ball joints, do some custom lighting on the back end of it for the brake lights and stuff, because I have a really cool idea for that, and just some other little things here and there. So for the garage, I got some new overhead lights, kind of like the ones that Aaron gave me. They're basically the same thing, same size and everything, that a friend of mine got me. So I'm going to be putting those up, and we'll be getting the garage lighting pretty well dialed, especially on my little work area side. And then I want to try and insulate it a little bit better. I was looking at strip curtains to put over the man door, and I want to put new seals on the bottom of the garage doors. I resealed the sides and the upper part of the doors, but I haven't put new seals on the bottom of them yet, so I'm going to do that, put a strip curtain up. And then the windows inside of that garage are really badly insulated. They're just junk old windows that, I mean, they work, but they're old and beat up. So I've noticed, like, when it was snowing really bad about a week ago and the wind was blowing really bad, it was actually blowing snow in through those windows around, like, the gaps around them. So I'm going to go to the hardware store and get some custom cut Lexan or like plexiglass or something, and bolt those around like the frames of the window, because the windows don't have their own frames. They're just inside of like a wood frame built into the wall of the garage. So I'm going to get those and just try to seal the garage up a little bit better, get it to stay a little bit warmer. And then I have a wood burner to finish installing that you guys have seen. I got to get that done, which would have been done a long time ago, but I bought the wrong size piping for it, or the wrong kind of piping for it. So we'll be getting the wood burner in, re-insulating it a little bit. I also have to put a new wick in my radiant kerosene heater, and then I still have the big giant forced air heaters working pretty good still. So that's a little bit of a look into what is coming up. I wanted to make a video just talking about you know, some updates on stuff, what's coming up, what to look forward to coming soon, because I know it's been a little while since I've uploaded anything, because the last video I uploaded was the lowering kit, and that was over a week ago now. That's a good look into what is coming up. If you guys want to see the videos on the Grand Am and the other car, let me know. They're just going to be repair videos, and I'm not really going to know what I'm doing when I'm going into it, so it's not going to be much of a tutorial. But if you guys want to see it, just let me know. I will at least be making a video showing you guys the car that I bought, but I don't know if I'm going to make a video about, you know, repairing it or anything. It's only if you guys want to see that. But that is going to be the end of this video, guys. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.